Hello and welcome to All Stats Aren't We, a podcast in which Leeds fans cast their combined eye over goings on at Ellen Road, giving scrutiny to the underlying statistics and tactical footing at work at Leeds United. I'm Adam Elliott, the Dan James injury of the podcast. Well, it's so late in the game, we will see this out, yeah? And I'm joined today by the Gabriel Goodmanson last minute goal of the podcast. Wow, we've actually won it. Hang on, it was at the wrong end. Well, this is a man that knows all about the right end. It's Martin Riley. Martin, how are you?
I'm not doing too bad, thank you, Adam. Had a pretty busy day at home with the kids and just doing random stuff around the house, trying to not think about the way that game ended, and then got to it and had to rewatch it again tonight. So yeah, I've had a nice tea. I've had some pizza and some samosas. I had some samosas to go with it. Random, I know, but it works. How about you? How are you doing?
Italian Indian, what a combination that is. Yeah, I mean, considering yesterday, I'm actually all right. Had a decent enough day, busy day like you. I had a spicy Italian rigatoni that I made. Honestly, I should have made 2 portions of it, but I didn't. I made 1, and I'm kind of regretting that now. It was that good. But that set the tone for this evening, hopefully, because hopefully this is cathartic. And you probably, a lot of our listeners will know we do rewatch the games. I didn't manage a full rewatch. Couldn't bring myself to do it. You managed a full rewatch. So, the things you do for these guys, to give them proper insight and not just be all reactionary and record immediately after a game, as some other, other podcasts and Leeds channels do. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I'm just saying I prefer our way. I think we're a bit more balanced when it comes to that because of the way we do it. And if we had recorded this yesterday, I think you and I might have been a little bit, well, especially me, but you a little bit as well, a little bit more angry and a little bit more upset and maybe not as kind of not reactionary as you should be. So I'm glad we're doing it now as we are. But yeah, the weekend is over, so we're back to work tomorrow. So I guess there's that to look forward to too. This is Sunday that we're recording. Any news to talk about? I guess what I just mentioned in the intro there, which is Dan James' injury. We haven't got an update from Farker. He just said they're going to have to assess him, basically. But it's been a rough start in that sense, Martin. And it's kind of unlined up by, we talked about this already on this podcast. Last season, we made the fewest changes of any team in the Championship game to game in terms of our starting lineup changing. This season so far, we've made 23 changes to lineups, which is the most we've ever done in our history in the first 4 games of a league season. I think Johnny Cooper said that. Shout out to him. And I guess, is it Farker's not finding his best team yet, or is it actually just injuries? It's Tanaka, it's Ampadu, it's James, it's other little ones like Perry, it's things like that. It's just been mounting up recently.
Yeah, so it's not great that James is injured, and I think it is a combination of those things. I do think there's players who are trying to find their feet in the club, so that's why we've had so many different strikers who have started. We've had Perot, we've had Macher, we've had DCL finally. So I think it's just a settling process for part of it. And then the other one is the injuries, of course. I mean, I think I kind of expected a bit of an uptick in injuries. The intensity is higher in this league. There's more sprinting going on. There's more transition defending going on. So players are going to be working harder at this level than what they did in the Championship. I think a lot of the times against some clubs in the Championship, since we were so dominant, you didn't have to do as much running because you were generally penning teams into their box and had to defend the odd transition here and there, but it's not the same in the Premier League. Teams are better at defending their box, so there's more times where you're having to get back to defend when you have just been attacking. So I was kind of expecting there to be more. Unfortunately, 2 of them were in the same area in midfield. So yeah, and Perry's a weird one. Obviously you can't really blame the increase in intensity down to that, but just a bit of unluckiness in that, I guess. But I think it will settle down, hopefully, as the players get used to the intensity. And luckily, the places where we have had the injuries are places where we do have decent depth. So it could have been a lot worse if it was, I don't know, say, left back or right back. The drop between the starter and the backups there is pretty stark. We've not seen too much of Justin yet, of course, but I do feel that Bogle and Goodmanson are a considerable upgrade over him, whichever position he plays. I assume he's the first choice backup for both sides, with Byron being the third choice. But yeah, that it could have been in worse areas, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, as much as we are annoyed that we didn't get one or two more at the end of the window and attack, like in quite a lot of areas, we don't have terrible depth now. We do have a 21-man outfield squad and 4 goalkeepers, 21 players outfield that are actually senior. And I'm not on about like including Harry Gray there. I'm on about 21 actual senior players. Is more than I think I've ever seen in a Leeds squad in my lifetime. So yeah, that's certainly been a consideration, I think, from the club to just make sure that we are covered in that sense. And if you do get 2 in the same position like Ampadu and Tanaka and it feels a bit stretched, after the international break, we've ended up in a decent situation again where we've got quite a lot of midfield options. So hopefully we never have that situation, especially fullback, I worry a little bit, and certainly out wide as well, because we have a lot of options. We don't have tons of quality there. So that would worry me in those areas. But in the central spaces, we're not doing too badly. So, yeah. But, bloody hell, we have had a few, haven't we? I didn't even name some of the others. We've had Okafor get a little knock. We've had, I'm probably forgetting some. We've had quite a few, basically. For now in pre-season, for example, we've had quite a bit. But, yeah. Before we move on to the proper part of this podcast today, I just want to remind you all to like and subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review on Spotify or whatever podcast player that you're listening on. It really, really goes a long way, and we would appreciate that very, very much. Hello, we are on YouTube, and if you are hoping to hear us on YouTube, we're putting them out maybe a day or two after they go live on Spotify, so you just have to wait a bit. Hosty is the only one doing the YouTube stuff at the moment, so he's kind of on his own, and also he has said to me he'd like to delay it a little bit from the initial recording, so that's fine. But yeah, please go over, like, subscribe, all that good jazz. It would be very, very much helpful to us. I am wearing Leeds gear today. Again, that's been shown on YouTube right now. Mine's not, but it's fine. I guess we're on brand at the moment, which is fine. I mean, that's class, to be fair, that t-shirt.
Yeah.
And anyone listening won't know that until they go over to YouTube, leave us a like and watch it. So there you go. Anyway, let's get into this properly then, shall we, Martin?
Indeed.
Right, Leeds approached the game in a 4-3-3 shape, with Fulham in their classic 4-2-3-1 under Marco Silva. Both teams had spells of consolidated possession during the first half, as well as possession around the opponent's box, with Leeds having more of the ball during the first half. Leeds were able to keep Fulham at arm's length and didn't allow a single shot on goal during that half, and Leeds did have the chances, but struggled to create any meaningfully big chances, let's put it that way. During the second half, Fulham were able to get the better of the possession for longer spells and keep Leeds penned in, but Leeds still did a good job of keeping them away from the goal, with Fulham's first shot coming from a Harry Wilson free kick in the 58th minute, which Carl Darlow brilliantly saved. Most of the chances in this half were relatively low value, with the best being some half chances. It seemed like the game was going to end 0-0 and peter out until the 94th minute, when Fulham won a corner. The ball was whipped into the box and struck the unaware Gabriel Goodmanson in the head, and the result was the ball going past Darlow and into the top corner, and the game then ended 1-0 to Fulham. That meant our 9th defeat in a row in the Premier League in London. And as discussed on the opposition preview, and when I went on another podcast to talk with a couple of guys for Fulham, it's not been pretty for Leeds. I think our last win in London was to stay up on the final day of the 2022 season with Jack Harrison and Rafinha's goals. So it's been a long time. Anyway, stats of note then, before we get into this properly. Fulham edged the XG battle 0.85 to 0.79, but it wasn't by much. They also edged the possession battle 54% to 56%. They had 2 big chances. We had 1. That was pretty much it for meaningful stuff. And I'm going to start with another negative stat, but we'll talk about this one later, which is Johnny Cooper again. He said Leeds have scored just 1 goal in their opening 4 league matches of a season for the first time in their history. But anyway, let's start with some positive, Martin. That's probably better. And let's try and be kind of positive through this, even though we're going to talk about some not so great stuff. But it's becoming, Farker said this was a perfect performance after the game. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, and I don't think you would, because we didn't win the game. We certainly weren't looking that capable of winning the game. But even though I'm not going to fully agree with it, for 94 minutes, it was pretty good. And there were some real positives in our shape, in our compactness. and in how we defended our box. So what are we actually doing well, not just with Fulham, but in general, but particularly with Fulham in mind, with regards to stifling the opposition so far?
So it's in this one, it was a change to our shape. Obviously, we normally opt for something of a high press, especially when we are at home. But in this one, it was just pretty much a true mid-block with some moments of aggression, but that were few and far between. So we're really compact. The spaces between the defence and the midfield was all perfect. The closing down of what wide players and picking up runners was also really good. And I think that's all you need to do sometimes to defend against a team well. Make sure you're getting bodies around their biggest threats, which we were doing. Their strongest side was probably their left side, and we did a really good job of nullifying one of their better players in Iwobi. And I think both Vogel and Aronson can take credit in that respect for keeping that side pretty locked down. There's a couple of moments where they were able to get balls into the box and stuff like that, but it wasn't bad at all. They didn't really create anything, and it took a long time, considering they didn't have a single shot in the first half, and that's an impressive thing to do against any Premier League side. And it's not like we were up against a bottom 4 or 5 team Premier League side either. Fulham are now an established mid-table side with a quality manager, a lot of quality players. So I do think that we can really take pride in that the only goal separating these two sides was an extremely unlucky own goal. Like, I can't get my head around how unlucky it is. Not first of all because the initial cross wasn't cleared by either Strauch when he was challenging and Roden, who was behind him. Roden randomly didn't really jump. I'm not sure if he's expecting Strauch to clear it, but he didn't really jump. Maybe he made a little effort, then figured that Strauch was going to clear it, and he didn't. And then equally, Goodmanson was caught out, and then just hit his head perfectly to just cannon into the top corner. One of the few places where we couldn't deal with it. So yeah, just incredibly bad luck. After, I would say, it was a really, really good performance, especially out of possession. We couldn't really have done more in that respect to stop a goal from coming. The only time when they had real threat was when their new shiny £40 million attacker came on the pitch in Kevin. And yeah, he was a handful. Let's put it clear. And yeah, that's the sort of player that we were looking to target initially. I think, but yeah, that's another story. So yeah, I do think that just the main thing that we did well was just defending. That sounds quite simplistic, but defending is quite a simple thing. If everyone's sticking to the jobs, marking the players, defending their spaces, getting the lines right, then it can go like this and work. But then we just got that unluckiness. So yeah.
Yeah, you added me in our group chat about 10 minutes before the end saying, Adam, we've pretty much called this perfectly. And
we still did. We still did.
We still did, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
You also said, and you got the score right. You said,
I think you said that actually. I think I said that we got the game right, and then you said, and I got the score right on the
yeah,
Fulham.
Yeah, okay, fine, whatever it was. Yeah, I said on another pod,
we both jinxed it.
We did. We can both take some blame. But yeah, on another pod for Fulham, I said we don't do predictions at all stats, but if you're really pushing me to give one, I said 0-0 or a hopeful 1-0 if Calvert-Lewin can score a goal or something. And it looked like we'd done a 0-0 and it had been called perfectly. We said that the middle of the pitch would be really important in this game, in the sense of like a midfield battle of lots of players that are probably similar quality for both teams, quite a lot of physicality in both midfields. Like, I just felt like it was going to be there, that the game was won or lost, or just it would peter out, and it felt like it did just peter out for most of the game. I think our midfield did a really good job of being compact and of protecting Strauch and Rodon, although they had good games too, and we'll come on to that. But actually what you said, it's not just about that, it's about the way we got back into shape so quickly. Not that we attacked loads, but every time that the Fulham were venturing forward, the way we had two banks of kind of, well, we had a bank of 4 and a bank of 5 very, very quickly. But it was more the fullbacks and wingers we instantly had in position. Like, I don't think Aronson had a fantastic game. Out of possession, he was certainly helping Bogle a lot down that side and was certainly doing his job, like his instructions well in that sense. And yeah, I was really pleased with that. The shape and the doubling up was perfect. Not being too aggressive in the press, like you said. I think we needed to be a little bit more mid-blocky, even like a little bit, not fully, but like a little bit more low-blocky at times, like dropping back in and making just sure that you're not conceding loads of chances and you're getting bodies around the box. And we did that really, really well. And so everything was perfect. Like even Calvert-Lewin and Metcha as our nice outlet. We knew with both those players, we didn't need anyone that particularly close to them. If we went long, Calvert-Lewin was going to try and make something of it, or Metcha was going to try and make something of it. And for large parts of the game when we had to do that, they did. So I was really, really pleased with a lot of that and a lot of how we defended. That didn't have a shot in the first half, Martin. And I said I rewatched some of the game. I mostly rewatched the first half and a bit of the second. The first half was honestly really quite good. I'm not saying we were like free flowing and attacking and all that, but we were the better team in that period, and we were certainly the ones that were on top in terms of our dominance of the way the game was going. Even if they had the ball, it was just going nowhere for them. And I really, really enjoyed how we looked, and then how we broke on them a couple of times was more promising. So, yeah, unfortunately, it didn't mean anything in the end. But yeah, we were arguably the better side for around 65 minutes-ish. So what changed later in the game to give Fulham more of a foothold? Was it something we did, or was it something that they did? And if so, what could Farke have done differently, in your opinion, Martin?
I think the main thing which sparked life in Fulham was, like I said before, the introduction of Kevin, which was a bit later than 65, 70. I think about 75 potentially when he came on. But I think during the second half, especially, I think both sides were kind of sitting a touch deeper and maybe not having the moments of aggression in their mid-block, which they did have in the first half. So, and I think we were especially doing that. We were inviting Fulham onto us, basically saying, try and break us down. You're not going to do it. And they didn't. And then we was able to hit them in transition quite a few times in the second half. But then when we got it to the final third, there was just little moments of bad quality, of getting the right ball to the right players at the right moments, or getting the execution slightly wrong, or making the wrong choice. So I do think that what Farke could have done better was his substitutes. I think I was calling for Tanaka on a tweet, but I think he's most likely not fit enough to play in this one. So that'd be why he didn't get brought on, but he could have given us a nice bit of progression in midfield and a bit more accuracy. But I think the biggest one which wasn't introduced was Gnonto, and I don't understand.
But
it wasn't by choice, was it? No. He wasn't going to bring him on in this game, I don't think. And it was only when James got injured in the 86th minute that he got brought on, which, considering that Gnonto is one of the few players in our attacking third that we've got who can pick a pass and can make these little moments out of nothing, I think it's a really odd choice to not bring him in. And I think it comes down to, in Farke's mind, for away fixtures, he always wants his best out of possession attackers. So his effort boys. And that is going to be Aronson and James. James wasn't fit enough to start, so he brought in Aronson. And then when it came later on, he also wanted to keep that out of possession strength, so he went for Harrison. That's what it's going to come down to for away fixtures. And I honestly think that the next away fixture against Wolves, Aronson is going to start again. And see if I'm wrong, I'm proven wrong, and Gnonto starts. But if Aronson does start again, I think that's what we're going to have to put up with away from home is Aronson, which, as much as he's got upsides out of possession, I don't think the gap between Aronson out of possession and Gnonto out of possession is all that big. Gnonto is still our player with the most tackles won in the squad, and he didn't even play this game. He didn't even start. He played 5-10 minutes, and one of his first actions in the game was tackling Kevin. Seriously, go back and watch that spell after Gnonto came on. He tackled Kevin. Now, I don't think that was something which Aronson had managed to do while he was on the pitch on that side while he was there. But yeah, I wasn't best pleased with the sub choices. That's probably the only thing that I would say Fark could have done differently, would be sub choices. All the rest of what the tactical approach was spot on. That's exactly what I would want.
Stay in the
Manager
game
to do.
for 70 minutes and then
Yeah,
see what you can do at the end. Yeah,
you cannot ask for better than that. And because Fulham had more quality to bring on the bench, I mean, Farker had more quality to bring off the bench, but he didn't use it. But yeah, Fulham subs were better than ours, higher quality, had offered more threat from both right and left. But yeah, that's the main thing for me is sub choices.
yeah, and I'm not saying that Farker played for a draw here. I don't think he did. I think he was going to try and go for something late on, but I didn't like the sub choices because it felt like he wasn't. And I know what you said earlier. You said that Aronson, Harrison, James, his effort boys, his out of possession kind of wingers are what he's going to look to. But I don't think that can be the strategy for every away game this season. I know it's going to be for a lot of away games, but like I do think we can go for it. We can't go through a whole season of just drawing and losing away. We haven't even got a draw yet, but you know what I mean, like playing for draws away. I don't think he did that, but like I think we need to actually go for a win a bit more.
I'm happy enough starting the game. No, I'm not happy starting Aronson, but if he's going to do that, at least bring on Nonto for that spark to try to nick something later on in the game. I won't be happy with having all the best effort boys on the pitch at the same time in any game. So I said that I don't want to see it, but I understand the logic behind it, even if his logic is flawed, because Nonto is nearly as good as our other wingers out of possession, in my opinion, and he's shown it so far in the Premier League. But yeah.
His this might surprise you, his expected assist number is lower than Aronson and Harrison so far, Nonto. And he's not created that many chances. But we're not talking about numbers here. We're talking about the profile of the player. And every single one of us knows that the match winner that was on our bench yesterday was Willie Nonto. And he was the one that was going to maybe do something. And so that's what I'm going to get at. Like, there's some away games, and I think Fulham comes under this, where I want Farker to be a bit braver and to go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring on Nonto, and I'm going to try and go for a win. It might backfire and we might lose, but like it might be occasionally worth it to win. We can't go 19 games and not win away from home. We have to win maybe like at least a couple, maybe 3 or 4. 3 or 4 would be really good, really, really good if we can win like 4 away games. And this was one of them that was there for the taking. So I was a little bit annoyed at that in terms of what Farker could have done differently to answer the question. But yeah, like for the most part, it was. And I said this actually in the preview, and I said this to Kish when I spoke to him. Like, I felt like their bench was better than ours, and I felt like their bench might have more about it. Even though I felt we had a few match winners of our own, they had a few more, and I was worried about Kevin from what I've heard about him. And I'm not that surprised that he came on and he's probably the best player on the pitch for the last 20 minutes, wasn't he? And Farker said it after the game. This was a really nice, interesting wrinkle. He didn't outright say, oh yeah, he was a target for Leeds, but he was sort of saying like, yeah, we looked at him. So that was a bit gutting, but 40 million out of our price range, isn't it? Let's be honest. So yeah, he was excellent. And it wasn't that surprising that he came on and changed the game for them. So in terms of them coming into the game and then them getting a foothold, maybe we were dropping deeper and maybe we were starting to tire. I think we've talked about this as well. Energy levels doing this every game in the Premier League is difficult for the intensity. But I just think a bench also made a big impact. I think Silva recognised they could go for it and it worked. It might have been fortunate how it worked for them in the end, but it worked. He was the one who won the corner, for example, Kevin. So, yeah. Okay, let's get a little bit more negative now then, Martin, but let's try and stay positive. In your opinion, what was the plan in this game to try and create chances? What are you seeing that's kind of repeatable game to game at the moment? And why were there so few for us as well as our opponents for so long as well? Because, I mean, Fulham didn't do much until that last sort of 25 minutes, really.
So, yeah, I think the main plan was definitely to try to hit them in transition when they were getting forward and try to quickly get the ball down the flanks and get the ball into our attackers, and in that kind of way, the general transition approach. And then in possession, there was a lot of focus on the right flank, and Jayden Bogle especially was a go-to player to try to get the ball forward. And there was a lot of joy coming from that, and I think a lot of our better attacks did come from that side, at least in the settled possession that we had. I think that was where the biggest threat was coming from. And I do think in a way the decision to put Aronson there was slightly better than having someone like James on the right side with Bogle, because Aronson is generally a central attacker, so he occupies central space, and I think that part of it was a good choice, but Jan Tur can do that as well. He's much better at linking up with Bogle, especially. Yeah. I think that they understand each other's game a lot more than what him and Aronson do, and it just seems to work better when it's that combination. But yeah, those were the main. Both clubs had the same tactical plan to try to create chances in this one, in my opinion, and largely we were slightly better than they were at doing it, and. Well, for the first half, we were much better at them than doing it because they didn't have a single shot. But that was largely the game plan, was to hit in transition. Don't think either club were really beating the door down to have more of the ball and have possession all the time. It was just, a lot of it was hitting in transition. That's something which I said in the preview was where a lot of the action was going to come from. Both sides were going to struggle to break down the other in settled possession, and it was going to come down to transitions. And yeah, the plan wasn't greatly enacted from us, but I do want to give Fulham some credit in that their box defenders are top tier. 3 out of the back line they've got are very, very strong defenders. Anderson, Bassey, Tete, they're all really strong at defending the box. Especially Anderson, I thought he was superb. Dealt with Okafor really well when Okafor got hitting him in transition. But yeah, we definitely are missing something in the attack, and I think potentially Jan Tur could have provided that spark, but we don't know.
Yeah, for me, it's like, so when you were talking about Aronson then and his combination play with Bogle, it's the speed of thought at which Gnonto is able to do things sometimes that is really dynamic, and we lacked a bit of that dynamism. He just doesn't always have to think too hard about his next action. It's just do it and then move, do it and move. Obviously, that can be coached as well with some players, but some players are just quite natural, and he's one of those. But in general, like, I was bemoaning the final action for us in terms of the quality of the ball. We actually got into some good areas, but the decision making or the actual technique to pass the ball just wasn't quite there. I absolutely love Anton Stach, and I'm gonna love him this season. I know I am. But a couple of times he got forward, and then the pass was really sloppy. Aronson, when he had to pass it out to the left, he actually carried the ball really nicely, and it was an absolutely atrocious pass. Then you had even Longstaff at one point just so sloppy with the ball. As soon as we crossed halfway, sometimes the sloppiness of our play was really apparent. We were really good in our own half. We didn't do anything. And sorry to be to tangent slightly here, but I watched the EFL highlights every week because I still love the EFL and I think it's great. And I watched them this weekend, and I could not believe the amount of goals that were scored this weekend, or even just chances generally that were created from high turnovers. And it wasn't even necessarily players being pressed into oblivion. Sometimes it was literally just an awful pass straight to their forward, and then it was a chance or a goal. And we just have avoided that for the most part, apart from against maybe Arsenal. So I'm pleased with that. But it's just the quality once we pass the halfway line. And maybe it's because we didn't sign a player that we needed with a bit more guile. And maybe it's just not playing someone like Gnonto, who could be really good for us. But yeah, I was really lacking in that sense. It was really lacking in that sense. That annoys me. And I don't know fully what, other than, like you say, transitional moments and the odd set piece. And some of the set piece delivery was poor too, where we're trying to create at the moment. Because open play wise, the best that I could think of was Calvert-Lewin heading a couple of balls down, and Longstaff snatched at one, but it smashed across the goal and onto the bar. And then you had a couple of other moments like that where he's won one and it's not quite dropped for someone. And yeah, fair enough, that's some way of doing it, but it's not perfect to me. And I'd like to see a bit more. So something to work on. We'll come and talk about some other reasons and stuff around that in a bit. Yeah, how do Leeds create more, then? Is it as simple as missing a particular profile of player, as I just said, that might help? Or is it more something on a tactical level in your view? And I just want to tell you some stats here first, and our listeners as well. Because I think you could argue that Farke is being a bit more pragmatic away from home and is keeping the handbrake on a bit. We saw this a little bit last season as well. You sometimes said it, he isn't fully gone for it in some games. So far, our open play XG numbers are as follows in the games. It's 0.47 yesterday, 0.63 against Newcastle, 0 against Arsenal, 1.04 against Everton, and then our biggest chances of the season in terms of open play are 0.22 for James against Newcastle and 0.19 for Perot against Everton. The other chances that have been quite meaningful, we had one for Pascal, which was a set piece against Arsenal, one for Calvert-Lewin, which was also a set piece yesterday. It classed as a set piece because it was from a set piece situation. It was the header that he had. And then Metch's penalty. Those are the set piece ones that we've generated that are higher than those. But it means we've only created 2 chances above 0.18 expected goals in open play, Martin. And that is quite poor, you have to say. So, how do we create more? It's not necessarily what we did here against Fulham, but how, in your opinion, do Leeds generate a bit more?
I think as our attack gel more, that will help things for certain on a creative level and trying to get more open play chances, because we've got Okafor and DCL who are all brand new to this side, hello kitty, who are all trying to gel and understand each other and the way to move and where players are going to run in what moments. There will be certain things they still see in training, but live matches are always different, so it takes a lot of time to build up that relationship, and that's why I think it's important that we're playing Gnonto and Bogle on that right side, because they've developed that relationship. They know where each other are going to be, they know what sort of runs each other are going to make, and they know how to best take advantage of each other's skill sets, and that's not going to come unless we put that relationship out there. Aronson and Bogle don't have that. I think if we do make use of that more, that will help things. That's more on an individual level. On a tactical level, I don't think there's a whole lot different that we're doing in terms of committing numbers forward. It's a similar sort of rest defence to what we had last season, in all honesty. You've got the 2 centre-backs who are back. You've got the defensive midfielder, one of the midfielders last season. This season it's the defensive midfielder who's staying back in Ampadu. And then you'll generally have one of the other players hovering in sort of in between, not quite fully back, but easily able to get back because they've got the good recovery pace. So players like Stack or Longstaff will be looking to aid that where they can. And that's very similar to what it was last season, in all honesty. So it's not really changed too much in that respect. So I don't think tactically there's a whole lot that we can do differently, at least not in terms of committing numbers forward. I'm not sure if there's certain things that they can work on training-wise, that automations, trying to get the best out of each other, get to know each other's movements more. I don't know if that's the sort of thing that Farker does in his training session. I don't think it is. It's not. We don't often see too many repeatable patterns of play, but I think a big part of it will come when the team get used to each other more, and that will come when they've played more. This is the first start for Okafor, first start for DCL, and they'll keep at it and keep improving, I think. But we are definitely missing that passing first profile that we were after. It's clear what we wanted in January, especially on the final days. Buonanotte or Wilson would have been that pass first profile, which we're missing. We've got a lot of runners, we've got a lot of dribbly boys, but we don't have anyone who is a true pass first player in the final third. Gnonto is the closest one that we've got. He's probably more pass first than he is dribble, I'd say, only just. But he's definitely, I wouldn't say, a true creator. He's more of an all-round attacker. He can do a bit of goal scoring. He can do a bit of creation, but he's not really a specialist. And you kind of need that to knit these profiles together. So if we can shit house our way to January, keep things tight, keep ourselves in games, win games here and there, draw games here and there, and then if we're in a good enough position come January and we're not cut adrift, then we should be able to sign another attacker who will be the profile to unlock a lot of what this squad is capable of. And that doesn't have to be focused on in possession either. Plenty of clubs stay in this league by building on set pieces. Hell, even some of the top sides in this league do a lot of their scoring from set pieces. Arsenal, for one, they score a lot of their goals from set pieces. So I don't think open play should be the only focus for us. And I can understand why people are wanting it, because we've been used to creating lots of chances in the past 2 years in the Championship. And the last time under Bielsa, we scored a lot of open play stuff and Bielsa largely ignored set pieces. And now it's the total opposite. We've built this team which is which can be very good at set pieces, even if Farker doesn't want to admit that. And if the club are bringing in a set piece coach, that also will help with some of that chance creation, even if it is just from set plays. And if that can keep us in a good enough position until January, then we can try to address the lack of profile in the final third.
I mean, like, obviously we could, if we wanted to, but it would mean we'd create other problems for ourselves. You know, we could push 15, 20 yards higher up the pitch, and we could push the team all the way up, and we could get more bodies forward quickly. Of course we could, which is what Forest are probably going to be doing with Ange, for example. It's a big shift from what we're currently trying to do. And we probably would generate more chances from doing that, just because we'd have more bodies up towards their box. And that's quite a natural thing that would happen. And at the moment, we're not doing that. We're sitting more on a mid-block for the most part. And I think that is the right approach. But some will argue we should sacrifice some sort of like good solidity defensively for that. I was just having a look at our expected goals against numbers it's only a 4-game sample size, but we have played Newcastle and Arsenal, who are in the Champions League. And we're currently 11th in the league in that respect. So that's quite decent. But like, I do think if you tried to kind of make the team more aggressive attacking-wise, you're suddenly going to see a big decline in that number. It's not going to be very good. We're going to drop down the league in that sense. And like players like, I don't know, Strauch, for example, standing a lot further up the pitch, his pace will get exposed. Of course it will. We do have other players that can recover well. And, some players would suit it. Goodmanson and Bogle pretty capable in that respect, but can't commit too many bodies forward. So that's one like example of what I've seen online, like some people talking about that sort of thing, like maybe we need to be a little less as we are now and push up, but it is dangerous. So yeah, it's what you said. It's stay in the games all the way to January. It might be really awful. It might be a horrible watch. As a few people and Graham said on Twitter, might be one of the last teams on Match of the Day every week and all that, because it's just every time it's 0-0 or 1-0 or something like that. But so be it. And if we can get to January, we can get, as you call it, pass first player who's also, and like we did target this, it wasn't just a pass first player, we targeted set piece taker as well, and a left-footed one at that. It wasn't just Buenanotte, it wasn't just Wilson, it was also Ritsu Doan we had a look at, who's a magnificent footballer at Frankfurt now.
Paixão as well is a set piece taker.
Yeah, he's obviously not
left-footed,
but yeah, same thing, like he can create really well, and he's a set piece taker, so we need someone who can do a bit of those two things hand in hand, and that profile often does go hand in hand, let's put it that way. So yeah, it's not great, but we'll be able to find marginal gains from set pieces. And the fact that they're hiring a coach in that respect, so we should hopefully see some uptick in that respect. Hopefully they're working on it already in training. You'd like to think they are. And like you said, hopefully relationships are being built on and off the pitch with players so that eventually we're going to see a Calvert-Lewin flick on, Okafor running through in a transitional moment, Okafor getting through and scoring. That's probably going to happen at some point in the season. Mm-hmm. Or, we managed to win the ball back centrally and Strauch or Stack or Ampadu or someone like that actually goes a bit more direct and they hit Dan James over the top and he runs onto something and we score from a cutback or something like that. Like, we'll score a few goals like that, I'm sure, but it's just that so far it's not been great, and fair enough. But the team hasn't been as cohesive yet. It's not settled yet, and we haven't bedded everyone in yet. And some players are adapting to the Premier League as well. So there's a lot of different things to consider, even though it does feel like we're making quite a lot of excuses here. But let's talk about another positive then, Martin, because we want to get to January, like you say, and we want to be a team that are staying in games. We want it to be a team that is compact. So did you see stuff in this approach, in this game, that was repeatable for away games in particular, and if so, why?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this should be our go-to approach for every single away game that we have. Maybe not against maybe your really low-end ones like your Burnleys. I would not like us to take up this approach against Burnley. But yeah, I think largely this is the way you get points out of away fixtures.
This is the way.
Yeah, this is definitely the way. There's no other way of doing it. If you try to commit too many bodies forward, you'll be massively exposed. I know we were used to the way Bielsa used to attack and he used to commit everyone forward, but look how many times we got absolutely our asses handed to us, and that was with, let's face it, a legendary coach at the helm, and we do not have a legendary coach at the helm now. We've got Daniel Farker.
You got 100 points in the championship. You got 190 points. What are you on about?
He did, mate. Broke all the records. And we just need to get used to that. We won't be able to do that. we have got a very solid side, but if we were to go even more aggressive than what we do attempt to at the moment, we will very quickly get exposed. We do have good transition defenders. I felt Bogle especially dealt with transitions really well in this game. He was up against probably the toughest one on that pitch, Iwobi, and he largely dealt with him. And to be fair, bullied him, especially going the other way. He really did make his life hell in this one. But that's not what this question's about. I do think that this approach is what we'll always see away from home, and it's not largely too different from what we'll do at home. It's mainly the out of possession stuff which is different, and I think that is what we'll do, because if we were looking to commit to more bodies forward, then the players will just go along and they'll find he will be with space. Because if you're having Bogle pushing up in the press right up at Iwobi's arse, then Iwobi will just shift it into the middle, and then Iwobi will run behind him and then quickly receive it. And that's how quickly it's undone when you try to press. We've experienced that under Jesse Marsh, how much that can leave us exposed, especially in fullback areas.
And Bielsa, we went man-to-man.
Yeah, and Bielsa as well. Yeah, I still love man-to-man approach, though. I still love it.
I mean, there's a lot of elite teams have been adopting it more now, so yeah. Fair enough.
No, I still love it. But yeah, that's a story for a different thing. But yeah, I do definitely think that the approach will work, and next time we could have this exact same game against Wolves, but the slice of luck could go our way, and then it's 1-0 to us, and then we'll win the game most likely. So that's the thing, that it's football. These stupid things happen. That's why we love this game. If that had gone the other way, we wouldn't be saying, "Oh, we've got so lucky," because we probably deserve to win this one if any team did in this one, in my opinion. But probably 0-0 was a fair result, in all honesty.
Yeah, Farker actually said as much, and I totally agree with him after the match. He said, if we're being honest, I didn't use these words exactly, but he was basically saying, if we're being honest, Everton was a 0-0 that we edged. Newcastle was a 0-0 that was a 0-0, and this was a 0-0 that Fulham ended up edging. Mm-hmm. So he actually said, we're 4 points, not 3. Those were his exact words. So he said, in that way, we're happy. And I agree, but it would have been really nice to have 5. So I'm a little gutted in that sense. But I do agree with you.
Oh, how the turns have tabled.
Yeah. The XG numbers in this game, just to go back to that, I don't fully think they do it justice, because, as I mentioned before, we did get into some threatening positions and the ball just broke down, and it wasn't because Fulham weren't necessarily doing always this great thing. Sometimes they were, because Tete had a really, really strong game, for example, and a few others did have good games as well for them, but in particular him. But like, when Stack's breaking forward and then he's just passing it really sloppily, or Aronson, or whoever else it was just like, come on, man, just a bit more quality in that moment, and we might have an attack here, we might have a shot. So I do think the blueprint is the right way to go, especially until January. And I do think as well, there's something that's been missed is, and I know you play every team twice, home and away, I know that, but I genuinely think the way the games have fallen in the second half of the season are a bit kinder to us. And so if we're in with a shout and we've got another body in that's better in the final third to help us out in that respect, maybe even 2, then we might be all right. So we just need to keep going at it, and maybe more of these will end 0-0. But these low margin games, they leave you so open to variance, and that's what happened with the goal. We're going to talk about that now. I know you've kind of given your thoughts on it a bit, so I will. But yeah, like a moment like that, it's just unlucky, and it's just bad variance. But we already had a bit of, I wouldn't necessarily say like loads of good luck against Everton, but at least some luck, because we were the better team in that game marginally, and we were edging the game, and it looked like we were the team that probably deserved to win it more than the other. But we did get a bit of a luck with the penalty to actually score rather than create something of our own making. So there is that. But here, yeah, it's just variance the other way, and it's just so stupid. Like the way I see it, and you've said, but I think that Goodmanson believes the cluster of players in front of him, is it Strauch, is it Roden, and is it Stack, or something like that. He believes that, and why wouldn't you? The 3 tallest players on the pitch for us, he believed that one of them was going to get that away. And so none of them did, and the ball suddenly is coming his way, and he doesn't have time to react to it. He doesn't have time to set himself. And so it just hits him and goes in. And like you say, it couldn't have really been more unlucky, because if it hit him in a different way, it might have gone over or wide, or it might have gone down and like Darlow can make a save because it's not as difficult. Instead, it just flies into the top corner. It is ridiculous. I don't want to put too much weight on the cluster of players in front of him not getting contact with the ball, but at the same time, I can see why he probably did think that they should have. It looked like it when you watch it back. So it's hard to be like, oh yeah, let's blame them instead. I don't want to be like, Goodmanson did loads wrong though. Like some people are being a bit harsh on him, in my opinion. I just watched Hannibal Mejbri today for Burnley handball against Liverpool, and it was an absolutely glorious moment, to be fair. And that was just stupid. And that was just him being poor defensively and not reacting well in that situation. Whereas this, I feel like it's just a bit unlucky, to be honest, for Goodmanson. Would you agree with that?
Yep, 100%.
Okay, good. I can probably move on then. I don't think we're going to have too much to talk about in the second half, but we'll go into second half now.
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick one. If you're enjoying the video, be sure to like and subscribe to help us keep the content coming. And if you want even more, you can support us over on patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. You'll get bonus podcasts, exclusive articles, and access to our Discord community, all while helping us make more of the content you love. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
Right. We're going to talk about some specific players and performances in a bit more detail, but also go through some of your questions. This wasn't a question as our first one. We'll start with Tom Wilson. I'll focus on Leeds and all stats aren't we favourite. We might have covered it, but we'll see if we can get anything else from it because he did want to know about a certain situation in the match. He said not had a chance to rewatch yet, but I feel like we're too slow in our attackers. Lots of touches from our attacking players, waiting for support and then always resetting. It's never one touch out of their feet and then crossed into the box or direct through balls. Does anyone have any thoughts on this as to why we're struggling, besides us lacking the obvious quality of that final profile? I'll go quickly first because we kind of talked about it a little bit. But yeah, it's the speed of the actions for me is what, like I said, with Gnonto, he thinks about it a lot less. He does things a bit more instinctively, and I think that's an important word here, instinct. When you get Stack up there, who's a defensive midfielder for most of his career, and even though he does have some good attacking instincts, it's not really his area of expertise. It's not. He's a player that wants to break things up and play things to the more dynamic attackers. I think Tanaka would have added something here for sure, even though I agree with you. I don't think he's fully fit. He would have added a bit more in terms of thinking about passing it quicker, snappier. His feeling for the tempo of a game is really good as Tanaka. So he would have known when to up it and when to go a bit more direct with it. So yeah, to answer Tom's question, I do think there's something to be said of that. And I do think it's something that could be coached a little bit more. But it's also not helpful when we do break and it's Aronson kind of on his own running into space with maybe like two options ahead of him, and then he's feeling like he has to turn back, and we did turn back and reset a lot here, which was probably one of the frustrations as well for me. So it wasn't just the ball breaking down, it was also just like not having the bodies up there, but then you sacrifice something defensively, as we said, so I could see why we're not flying players forward, let's put it that way. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add on this. If you do, go for it.
No, nothing else really to add. I think we've covered the issue, what we've been having with. I do think it's maybe a little unfair. I do think there have been plenty of moments where we have quickly got the pass out, but it's just always the execution isn't always that great. So yeah, I don't think it's always the urgency of getting the ball forward. It's the execution which is lacking when we do attempt to do that. So I don't think it's. I think it's more of the other things that we discussed earlier in the pod.
Yeah, we had a question from Tommy Oladipo on Blue Sky, who said, is there a non-winger reliant way for us to be stronger in attack? Obviously, under Farker in the last 3 seasons, really, the main way we wanted to generate chances in wide areas. In the preview pod, we said that Fulham and Leeds were both going to be looking to do that in this game. So he's asking about, can we get more out of our midfielders? Again, I want to just hammer home, of the midfield profiles that we have, and I do like our midfield options, the only one that I feel like stack a little bit, but the only one really that I like back to get forward and get loads and loads of well, not loads of goals, but like some goals and some output and get a few assists here and there is Tanaka. Really, he's the most kind of inventive player in that sense. So I would like to see a profile like him. Even if he's not starting, at least he can come on. Obviously, he wasn't quite fit and ready for this game. I think he was only there in case we got like 2 midfield injuries and we'd have to play him and Gruev, but he's probably barely trained. So there's that. I don't particularly think that Ampadu, Gruev, those even Longstaff's not going to, he might score the odd goal, but he might crash the box quite well. But he's not really a creative player. So one of the ways I would say to answer Tommy's question a little bit more is to get like midfielders up towards Calvert-Lewin more. And like the one time that Longstaff really got up to him, he nearly scored. He hit the bar. So, if he can smash a few from the edge of the box, it either is going to go in, it's going to go over, or it's going to make the keeper do something, whether that's going to go in or itself, or if the keeper's going to push it wide for a corner. And that's another chance that we might have an opportunity to create something as well from a corner. So there are ways that the midfield can help a bit more, but I can also see why we've used those wide combinations. And like even in pre-season, we saw good triangle combination between, we had Goodmanson, Stack and Nonto down the left, we had Bogle, Tanaka, and when Nonto was on the right, Nonto as well on the right. I guess I'm saying the same name a lot there, aren't I, with Nonto? So he should probably be playing a bit more. But yeah, I do think there's relationships that can form there as well. So it's not like all doom and gloom. I just think, if we're still looking like this in another 4 games and like we're still one of the bottom 3 teams for chances in open play generated, then I'll be a bit more concerned. But yeah, do you have anything to add on midfield or wingers here, Martin?
No, I don't think so. I think the way the team is set up isn't to rely on the midfield for too much in terms of attack. They will chip in here and there, the odd assist from one of them, the odd goal here and there, but I just don't think that's the way the team's been built. The team's been built to overload in wide areas, and that's with the profiles of the 2 fullbacks that we've got. We could have gone for a safety first left back. We could have gone for a centre back come left back, and then that would have shifted the whole dynamic of the way we were looking to attack. So it's clear that we want to get both fullbacks involved in the attack still, and use the midfield more as the rest defence than the fullbacks. So I think the main part where our attacks are always going to be generated with this team set up the way it is will be from wide areas. There'll be the odd moment here and there, like you say, where Longstaff crashes the box well and finishes, because he does do that really well. And there'll be the odd game where Stack does a similar sort of thing, or there'll be that time where he finds a nice through ball, because he can pull that out every now and again. He's not the best at it, but he can do it. So I don't think we should be looking at our midfield to do that. Our midfield is there to be stodgy as fuck and just mess teams up, especially in these away games. I just want to comment on this. We said a bit in our group chat just about how ugly we are in the midfield sense. We just got a bunch of people who will just absolutely batter people around, and I'm sure there's plenty of Leeds fans who love that from our midfield. And I'd imagine it's got to be pretty rough as well when it's from players who are quite attractive.
Yeah, I was going to say, an ugly way to play, but like quite a lot of good-looking blokes we've got. Yeah,
exactly. You got DCL, who's got really, really good looks. You got Strauch, you got Tanaka. These are all guys who maybe Tanaka not as much as the other ones. Longstaff, he's not going to win any beauty contest, and he's probably the roughest out of all of them. but there's one moment where Strauch was wrestling with Muniz, and he just absolutely bodied him and gave away a free kick. I think it was unfair. It was a bit. Both of them were all over each other's shirts, and I think it might have been the one where that Harry Wilson got his free kick from potentially. But yeah, Strauch was absolutely battering him, and I suppose some people might like having that done to them by someone as attractive as Strauch, but that's for another podcast altogether.
Yeah, they probably would. And also, just to go on Strauch for a second. Again, we talked about this last season, Martin, but some of our fan base seem to think he's soft. I'm not saying he's our hardest centre-back, but he's not soft. He's not soft.
Absolutely not. He's filled out so much in the past few seasons, and he absolutely is a warrior now. Anyone who says he's not and say Rodon's the only warrior in our centre-back pairing, you're talking nonsense. Absolutely. Yeah. He's built and he's aggressive. And any striker who goes up against him knows they've been in the game.
I agree. I totally agree. And it might not be Rodon, he might not be Beal, because obviously Beal's probably the most robust in that sense out of the lot that we have. But still, he's doing more than enough so far. I'm very happy with that. But we'll talk about him later, I think. I can't really add too much to what you were saying. That's spot on. So we had not a question from Sean on Blue Sky, but Sean just wanted to point out that we can't stay up on 0.58 XG every game. You watch, Sean. Hopefully we do. I'm not saying we will, but hopefully we do. Or at least we improve.
We will create more than that. And we created more than 0.58 in this. We created 0.79, Sean.
Yeah, I think he might mean open play, and we were less than that. But yeah, I get his point.
I realise.
Yeah, not a question. A bit of an elephant in the room, and I don't want to give this too much time, but I feel bad if we don't talk about it because someone came back to the Discord this recent week, and it's been the best. It's been the best. Let's put it that way, Martin. And some people listening will know who we're on about. Other people won't, or will have heard us mention someone who's called. Well, he prefers to go Cycross, but we call him Sycross. Hi, Andrew. And yeah, he he asked about Farker, and he wanted to talk about this a little bit. So we'll give him a moment because he deserves a moment in the sun, I guess. Does Sycross? Yeah, he just said, "Look, if we're going to play the way that Farker's described post match, because he did talk about this being the blueprint again, then in Sycross's opinion, he inherently isn't the person to do this because he's never done it. Let's get another specialist on the touchline." And then he mentions a couple of people. I'd be up for rolling the dice with Danny Röhl. Haha, funny. But yeah, the main one that he says is Corberan, who I don't think would be able to get out of Valencia. And I think they're both good options. But right now we have Farker. And I wanted to slightly defend Farker for a second. And I mean slightly because I'm not his biggest fan in the world. But I do think since Arsenal, and it might just be because we've played lower quality opposition, even then we've played Newcastle. But I do think we've been a bit better. I'm not saying things have drastically changed. I still think we're trying to use the ball in certain ways that we were against Arsenal that we still are now. But in some ways, we've definitely thought about profiles more in terms of the 11, and that's helped. And we are looking a little bit more solid going into games now. So even though I get what Sycross's point is, because Farker has never coached this before in his life, like a team that sits compact, sits deep, and tries to defend for large spells. But, Farker's doing more than well enough recently, in my opinion. I'm pretty content with 4 points. I would have been bloody delighted with 5. And so, Sycross, even though I love you, truly, I think you're being a bit reactionary here, in my opinion. And I say that when I fully went on a meltdown after the Arsenal game about Farker, but I'm pretty happy with how things have gone since. I don't know if you have anything different to say here, Martin.
Just first of all, I just want to say, love you, Sycross. Keep being you. But yeah,
please stay.
I do think I understand what he's saying, that this isn't something which Farker's ever done, but I also don't think it's really a terrorist specialist, like he's putting his words on here.
I left that out on purpose.
Yeah, I know. Football terrorism is what we're meaning here, just to be totally clear. And I don't think that's what we're seeing here. If you want to see that, watch what Burnley did against Liverpool today. I think it was something like 20% possession they had. That is terrorism ball. Watch any Steve Cooper side. That is terrorism football. No, I don't think that is what we're seeing. We are still committing bodies forward. It's just we're really good at getting back and being compact when it is. It's just because we're not conceding too much XG in these games doesn't mean that we're sitting with 10 men behind the ball at all times. That's not what we're seeing here. We're seeing a coordinated plan of attack and defence, and it's worked. I think Farker has got the approach right in all but one of the games, and I don't need to tell anyone which game he didn't get the approach, get it right.
And we probably would have lost that. It's just we were saying
either way, we would have lost it, but it wouldn't have been. It would have been a bit more palatable if we'd at least got everything the way it should have been. But yeah, I think it's too early to be saying to change managers. I mean, Aston Villa haven't got a single goal yet. I believe that's correct.
I think that's true. I'll check while you're talking. It's 1 or 0.
I'm pretty certain that when I was looking yesterday, they have not scored a goal yet. And
no, they haven't.
That's a team who are they? Which are they? Are they in Europa League this season?
They are in the Europa League. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a Europa League club with not a single goal from their opening 4 games. And Villa have got a very strong squad, and they've got a very good manager. So we could have Emery, and they haven't had a single goal. So, but yeah, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm not comparing Fark to Emery. It's an unfair comparison. Of course, Fark's fair. No. But no, I do understand what Sycross is saying, but it's well too early to discuss managerial changes.
Yeah, I agree. To cross his reasoning, and just to give him a shout out, is that both are more suited to that kind of style of low margin, dogged performances, being the underdog as well. Speaking of dogs, they're really good at that, and they've got a lot out of teams that basically made them greater than the sum of their parts, is a saying that gets used a lot, and they've definitely done that. Both have that pedigree of outperforming, within the squads and what suits them in the season and in the league they're in as well. So yeah, I get that, and I do take his point, but I don't know if we'd even be able to get someone like Corberán anyway, so it's kind of a moot point, that bit. And then on a similar vein, although slightly different, Jamie asked on chance creation again. He says, do you think a different manager would be able to get the same players to create more? Even in the Championship, most of our chance creation was down to having exceptional players for the level rather than Farke's system. And I think there is an obvious answer to the first part of this, which is obviously some managers will get more out of us. You mentioned Bielsa already. Bielsa didn't have a squad as good as this. I know what people think about recruitment, right? And while I'm here, go listen to our State of the Squad pod, because we talked about it all there, and come back. But the recruitment wasn't bad this summer. We just didn't do enough of it. It wasn't that the recruitment that we did was bad. It was that we just haven't done enough of it. The squad of players that we've got is miles better than the squad that we came up with Bielsa, player for player, man for man. It might lack a couple of profiles, especially in the forward areas, but it is still much better man for man. If Bielsa had this team, would we be scoring and creating more chances in these games so far? Absolutely. Would we be also conceding more chances? Absolutely. So it's just the way we've decided to be. So yeah, I do think a different manager would, but I'm also worried that we'd concede more. And it is a difficult balance to strike. And I know it's on the manager, and it's their job to find that balance. And maybe we do need to find more ways of creating chances and working on things in training, not just set pieces, like positional play and patterns of play. Sure. But I think that'll come naturally as well when these players gel. So there is that aspect. But yeah, Jamie's right. A lot of our chance generation was players doing stuff off the cuff because they were so good in the Championship and we had so much of the ball that eventually something would happen. Someone would do something. It wasn't always loads and loads and loads of repeatable patterns. There were a couple, I'm thinking already, that cut back across goal that we used to do, James and Bogle to the far side, with a lot of the time it was Solomon late in the season crashing in. We were quite good at that. We haven't seen loads of moments this season so far in any of the 4 games where you can say that's a repeatable action that Leeds have just done there to create a chance, and they're going to do that in the next game and the next game and the next game. I don't think we've seen much of that yet, but I still think 4 games in, we've got to give that a bit more time, personally.
I do think that it's maybe a little unfair to say that all our good stuff last season was down to the level of players, because would you say the squad last season was the best the Championship has ever seen?
No.
Or would you say it's similar in quality to the best that it's seen? Maybe it's of that part. So, but our numbers, at least in terms of underlying numbers, were the best the Championship has ever had in recorded up to data. There's been no club.
We beat Fulham. They were the best. So have that Fulham. Yeah. We actually drew 1-1 yesterday because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's unfair to say that it's entirely down to the level of the players to it, because there's been other managers who've had elite teams and not done the job in the Championship. So you still need to have a functional system to go up. I mean, Southampton only went up through the playoffs in the year where we didn't, of course, and I think they were much worse than us in that season. They just rode their luck and they just got through in the playoffs. Yeah, Russell Martin may have had Farke's number multiple times that season. Not going to deny it. But there were also lots of really good things which Farke did well, and beat managers who he's beat multiple times at that level. So I don't think it's fair to entirely boil it down to how good the players were, but it obviously does play a part. But you've got to give Farke credit for that last season. And yes, there would be other managers who I think would get more out of this squad. Carlos Corberán would be my ideal choice, and I've said it before, but I do not think that we would be able to tempt him away from Valencia. We're not at that stage yet. I don't think he would leave a club mid-season either. I think he seems like the sort of guy who would see the season out, or the only way he'd move to another club would be if he was sacked mid-season potentially. So yeah, he's off the table, and I'm not as in love with Danny Röhl as some. I don't mind him. I think he's a good Championship manager, but not always good Championship managers make a good Premier League manager. That's all I'll say. So we can't just say that just because he's got the better out of the players in that level, that he'd be able to do the same at the Premier League level, because it's a different beast, especially in this now. But there could be managers out there who could, but we don't know for sure. That's all I'll say.
It's a question for John, probably. Zach, this is the last listener question. A lot about chance creation, guys, and I understand why. To be fair, I'm not complaining about it, but we did get a lot. Zach in the Discord asked, what is hampering us most creatively? Is it the tactics, the setup, or the personnel? And he said he's aware that this is extremely a bit of both, and we're probably both going to say that in a second. But the reason he wanted to bring it up was actually because of Farke's comments post-match, which I don't want to touch on too much because I was a little bit pissed off with some of what he said. But the way that Farke talks makes you think it's solely the latter. Yeah, Martin, I'll let you go first here.
I don't really have anything else to say on this subject, if I'm totally honest. I feel we've done it to death. I think about three or four questions have been about similar kind of things. So I don't.
Do you want to talk about Farke's comments then? That's partly why I left it in.
Yeah, I'll speak quickly about them. So I didn't agree with the way he put things across. Let's put it that way. I don't think what he's saying was incorrect. I can understand what his point is, but you don't say that. How the hell are Aronson and Harrison gonna react to that sort of thing being put out? And James, that they failed multiple times in the Premier League, totally ignoring the first season when we went up, where Jack Harrison was bloody amazing, and in the second season he was good as well. It's not like these players have not been very effective in the Premier League, but the way Farke put it down was that they're all failures. If I was listening to that, you'd have to have a strong stomach and put a person back and say, no, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I think maybe there could have been something of that anyway, but I don't want to give Farke too much credit. I do think this is just a way of him covering his own back, in a sense. Although I do agree, he got he nailed the game plan on this game, as well as the Newcastle game and the Everton game. Just the Arsenal one he didn't get right. So I just don't think it's needed for him to say this. I don't understand what it is doing. What good is it giving?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
there's nothing positive about him saying that at all.
Yeah, and like they probably know the things because the comments he made were basically like what fans have said in the past online about a few players, and the players probably know, whether they found that out themselves or someone else told them or whatever it might be. They probably know in some capacity, but saying it so publicly was like, really? I don't think that's the way to go. And yeah, like you say, I think it's a bit of deflection. I think it's a bit of not wanting to take accountability and to put the blame onto something else, not necessarily those players per se, but just not him in this instance. And I don't love that, because I think it's also putting a bit of blame on the 49ers. And okay, yeah, they probably deserve some, the recruitment, for not getting that last player over the line, even though you can argue that it was a bit unfortunate that things happened the way they did with Buonanotte and Wilson. But we left it late, so I get why he would want to deflect onto things like that. But I just don't fully agree with it. I don't think it's the right way to go about things, and it doesn't generate a nice atmosphere around the club if you're just doing that sort of thing and around the players. I assume that, I mean, like, Farke's shown moments of good man management while he's been Leeds manager, but he's also shown some quite poor ones, I think, with his handling of some players in some situations. So wasn't a huge fan of those comments. So sorry, Zach, we're not going to answer your question. We hope we have during the podcast. But like on that last bit, yeah, I don't agree with him saying it's on the personnel only, because I do think it is, as you say, a bit of both. Like, we could probably do things a little bit better tactically, as we've discussed, and we probably will improve just from the players gelling. And also, yeah, it's gutting not to have got at least one more profile that would have really helped knit this team together in the final third. Let's finish on a nice positive then. There are actually quite a lot of good performances here, Martin, I think. So man of the match was quite difficult, in my opinion. You know, Ampadu came back from injury, and I know it wasn't a hugely long injury, but he was exceptional in terms of cleaning things up at the base of midfield. Longstaff was really good again, and like the way he gets to both first and second balls is brilliant. Stack, not great in possession, as we discussed earlier. Out of possession, really strong again. Like all three of them in there, doing their job, putting their bodies about. Stack had to play in a yellow card for ages, and we're still doing a good job of breaking things up. So all three of those were good. And then I haven't even mentioned Darlow making a couple of brilliant saves. That Harry Wilson free kick, did you look at the post-shot XG of it? It went from like a
pretty high.
0.2 to about a 0.6. I'm rounding there, but it was something like that. That's massive. It was a really good save. You know, a couple of other pretty decent saves. There were loads of good performers here. And then I just want to give one last shout out. And this isn't my man of the match. I'll let you go first. But Strauch and Rodon as a partnership. Everyone said Ampadu and Rodon was better. Everyone said that Strauch wasn't one of our best centre backs. And yet here we are. We're using Strauch and Rodon, and we've kept 2 clean sheets, and we nearly kept 3 in the 4 games. And okay, I really want Biel to play at some point, but you can't knock them. And I never really understood the Ampadu thing. We're a much better team when we've got both those 2 and Ampadu in front. And like, you know, in the games that those guys have played, we've conceded 1 goal. Those, you know, that core. So really, really delighted with how they battled away in this game and how they handled Muniz for the most part. So really happy with a lot of the defensive performances for certain. And you mentioned Bogle as well. I don't know if he's your man of the match.
He is, yeah. He's definitely my man of the match. I saw it. He just delighted me. There's so many just little things, just the way he handles certain transition attacks, just the way he kept up with Iwobi on those transitions and quickly shut him down a lot of the time. And then going forward, just the way he was carrying the ball so smoothly and combining well down that side with Aronson, who wasn't offering him a whole lot in possession. So I'd imagine it's quite a tough thing to have to deal with when the attacker that you've got with you isn't as good as you technically. That's got to be really weird for a fullback to have the winger ahead of them being less technical than they are. When will that happen? It won't be that often, will it?
Sometimes, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that's Trent, but he's another kettle of fish. I mean, he wished he was as good as Jayden Bogle.
I was going to say Jayden Bogle's England's best right back. What are we talking about? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Going to the Euros and the World Cup and all of it.
But no, yeah, the Bogle has been our player of the season so far, and he won the first month's player of the month, didn't he? So I'm delighted for him for that. It's not just us finally who are recognising how good Jayden Bogle is. The world is slowly coming around to it as well. And our friend John McKenzie, he's the one player that John's mentioned in a positive light for us.
Mr. Negative is the one player.
I think he has mentioned others in passing, but he has spoke about Bogle multiple times in our group chat. So yeah, if you know John, who isn't always able to watch all of our games, has picked up something and comment on one of the players in specific, you know you're doing something right. So yeah, Jayden Bogle, he's a god. I love him.
Yeah, it's between him and Longstaff for me. I probably just lean to Longstaff. I was really impressed with out of possession here. Like, I think he was the best of the 3 midfielders, and that was quite a high bar set, because I know that people are saying that Stack didn't have a good game, and I can see what they mean. In possession, I really can, and set piece delivery, blah blah blah, I can. But like, out of possession, he was still just really solid here, really what we needed him to be. And then Longstaff was just like exceptional in there in terms of out of possession work, in terms of eating up ground. He's not the quickest, but like you just see him popping up, picking up the ball when it's loose, and like just going into a challenge, winning it. Like, great, thank you, mate. So yeah, he was excellent here. I don't have any stats, but I imagine he did quite well in that respect. We should bring a few stats to the table in this section, probably.
I was just about to. If you want me,
you can look in a sec. Just let me finish. Yeah. So him, and then I wanted to just say, like, Goodmanson had a good game until what happened. Traore came on, and you're like, oh bloody hell, here we go. He's this unit of a man who's really quick. And Goodmanson held his own, and in fact, at one point he looked quicker than him in one of the actions that he did. And I was just like, I love you. You've changed my life. You are a well-rounded fullback who's able to do quite a lot of the game to a decent level, and I'm really happy with you as a signing. And then what happened, but I don't want to blame him too much. So, yeah, even Calvert-Lewin battled well. Okafor had his brightest game, so there were lots of positives. But I was between Bogle and Longstaff as well. I'd probably say Strauch was my third, but I think I went with Longstaff. Yeah. And I go on some stats quickly.
Yeah, so the guy who had the most tackles and interceptions combined was Brendan Aronson. He had 5 tackles and interceptions combined. 3 of those were 5 of those were tackles, all tackles. So I don't know why I said tackles and interceptions, but I didn't realise it was all tackles until at that moment. Then Jayden Bogle just behind him with 4, 3 tackles and 1 interception. Then there was a bunch of people on 3. Okafor Ampadu and Goodmanson. Longstaff actually only had 2 tackles interceptions, but I believe he was high in the balls recovered. No, not as high as I expected, actually. The guy who recovered the most balls for it, actually, was Noah Okafor. So
Nice.
another guy who seems to be doing his job out of possession. And then in the sexier stuff in this one, Okafor attempted the most take-ons, 5 take-ons attempted.
Yeah, I felt that.
Was only successful once, but even the ones where he wasn't successful, he won corners or free kicks, or he didn't lose it and then the player ran on past him and lost the ball completely. So he wasn't always bad actions. Progressive carries, Jaden Bogle top by a long shot.
No shot.
He had 7 progressive carries. The closest to him was Noah Okafor with 3. And let's see what else can I find here. XG, not a whole lot going in that respect. The highest XG was Dominic Calvert-Lewin with 0.3. And I just want to quickly touch on that headed shot. I think that's a lot harder than what a lot of people are giving it credit for.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a lot of pace on the ball when it was delivered in. It was floated in. And with those sort of balls, you've got to generate power and direction. It's very difficult to do both. I think he could have aimed it to the right sort of area, but then the power wouldn't have been there. Or if you would have tried to direct it too much with the power, then it wouldn't have gone on target. So I think that was a harder chance for what to make out. And commentators always say, "Oh, he must score. That's a must score." They always say that for headed chances.
Yeah.
With the amount of times in a game they say he has to score that shot, you're not understanding why he hasn't scored it. Because headed chances are very low value, much lower value than a normal footed shot from that position. So that's the reason why they're a lot higher, because like 1 in 10 to 15 out of 100 shots from that position go in. That's it. But yeah, that's something totally different to what we're talking about here. But yeah, there was a lot of good players in this game, a lot of high performers. Strauch and Roden were both excellent. Strauch was really good at getting the ball out and into the midfield and beyond. I think Roden was really good at carrying the ball. A few really nice moments where he burst forward with it and got out of a stickier situation. Darlow was excellent. Okafor was very bright. Good for his first start, I think. I think he'll build on that, and that's a good 65 minutes that he's put out there. DCL handled himself really well. Didn't look overawed by the very big centre-backs he was up against. He battled with them and was a good outlet. Yeah, I think Longstaff, he was probably my second one in there. He's becoming so important, especially for these away fixtures, to really impose himself on that midfield, and that's what he does best. When the game is more about the out of possession stuff, that's when Longstaff is going to shine, and 9 times out of 10 he'll be the man of the match. Because especially if it isn't a high scoring game, then yeah, that's why he won the third match against Newcastle, because it was a 0-0 game. So you give it to the guy who worked the hardest, and that's what he will always be. He'll always be the hardest worker on the pitch. He'll leave everything on there, and I'm sure Leeds fans absolutely love him for that.
Yeah, they are loving him at the moment, so I'm not surprised. Yeah, he drags teams to our level, which I think is good. He makes the game horrible and scrappy, so love him for that. Yeah, there wasn't too many players that I was disappointed with, to be honest, so we don't need to talk about that. It was a lot of positives. Even Darlow is a number 2 I feel better about, even just after this game, and he might have to play another couple yet, so lots of good performers. I was between Bogle, Longstaff and Strauch, and I hope our listeners were as well. I think they were the 3 best performers for us for different reasons. But yeah, I just edged to Longstaff and you edged to Bogle. Anyway, just a quick reminder then, the website, that's the word, the website for our Patreon is patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. We thank everyone that is on there already. That is wonderful. And we will have more content coming soon, I'm sure. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as we've mentioned, and leave reviews wherever you are that you're listening. It really helps us out. But that's all we have time for tonight. We'll be back soon with Wolves preview, including a 5th fan preview already, Martin. It's way more than last season already.
Solid.
And I think we've already got our 6th lined up, although I don't think it's a Bournemouth fan. It's an Iraola fan, and we'll just leave it there. We don't need to say anything else. An Iraola.
Everyone in the Discord will know exactly who we mean.
Yeah, they will. And I think it works, even though you're not getting a Bournemouth fan. But yeah, Dan will be talking to some guy. I don't know who it is. You know who it is this week for that.
It is Dave Azzopardi,
who has been on before, apparently. So look forward to that. Yes. And then Martin and whoever is going to be on the next pod. It might be me. It might be Hosty. We'll see. But yeah, all that's left me to say is thank you very much to Martin for being here.
Thank you too, Adam.
And thank you, dear listeners. We hope you got something out of this, and that you aren't thinking everything's the end of the world, as you probably were at about 5 o'clock on Saturday. So, yeah, we'll see you very soon for the Wolves preview. And the difficult circumstances of this game hopefully don't come back to bite us again. But Leeds truly are back with something that happened like that with that Goodmanson goal. You have to say. But anyway, see you next time. Bye.